Round 4 of the Karting North East Championship, where everything changes here. Brand new karts, fresh start, no more excuses, no more blaming equipment. For the first time this season, everyone's on equal ground. But equal karts doesn't mean equal outcomes. And when the weather throws everything at you, from soaking wet to bone dry, it's not about who's fastest on paper, it's about who can adapt and who survives. 2 races, 1 opportunity to prove what I can really do in these conditions. This wasn't a weekend of luck, it was earned every lap. So let's jump straight into the action of race 1. We have qualified in P2 alongside Zach Burgess on the front line of the grid. Let's see what we can do starting in P2. Now as the lights go green, we do get a good start. What you can't see is on my right is that Zach has bogged down and cut the car out. So that did briefly put me into P1. However, what we can see is someone going around the outside where the grip is and managed to make that position stick. And then we also have somebody else going around the inside, managed to take a corner a lot better than I could where the grip was, and has managed to make that stick too. So we are down into P3. Now you will notice that the position counter hasn't changed, or at least it thinks that we're in P3. There is a reason for that, and I'm going to ask for your opinion a little bit later on once it happens. Now as you can see, the track is drying, but if we look a little bit in the distance at them lovely black clouds, I'm sure that isn't going to last long. So we are currently doing a bit of the dry line. Now when you are out in front, it is a bit hard to know when and how to push the kart, which you will find out in race 2 of exactly what I do, but we are able to close him down a little by little as the corners. We can see where he's finding the grip and then adapt to that a bit better with my driving style, so we can manage to get that corner that little bit better. So we are catching up to first place as we're able to break that little bit later as him, and then we can see how long it takes me to get onto his bumper. Now I'm not sure who is in P1 right now, because Karting North East offer wetsuits for people that don't have their own, so everyone looks red and yellow illuminous. But if it is you, or indeed if you know who it is, drop a comment down below, as I did do a good job to maintain this position. But that is first lap done, and we are down in, the position counter says 3rd, and again we will see why, but we all managed to take that corner a little bit better. We'd have a quick check behind to see how close the karts are behind. They must have had a little bit of accident because there is quite a bit of a gap. But as we go around the dog leg, we can see we're able to take that a little bit tighter on the exit and again claw that extra gap up to P1 right now. Now although it's hard to tell, I am chucking myself on my body weight around quite a lot in the kart, but the stabilization is actually taking that away on the footage. So the reason why I'm doing that is to make sure I can get my weight where I need it, especially over the front and the outside rear, so I'm able to get that grip and able to get that exit, as you've just seen, coming out the second centre. And through the chicane you can see my line is a lot different, where I go a lot deeper, manage to turn on the grippy stuff, and I'm able to get that slingshot round, which gets me that overtake coming out. So that puts me into technically first place, but we're going to say second on the counter, as we will see on this next lap as we do go around. Now we can see the track is drying out pretty fast, so you can see where my lines are changing. However, that black cloud is coming exceptionally fast. You can maybe see some droplets on my visor as we go around as well. Now as we come round to go into lap 3, we can see that there's someone coming out the pits, and look who it is. Good old Zach. So because his car cut out on the line, they actually wanted to give him his position back, which is why I've only updated my position counter to second place. But what's your thoughts on the matter? Drop a comment down below. Do you think this is fair? Do you think you should have started at the back? I'm not bitter about this whatsoever, but let's try and get that overtake done so we can try to get that first place. What is currently going through my mind though is this.
No, Mike, that was so not right.
But never mind, we try to get the move done immediately, so at least we can get away. However, he's holding it around the outside. What I didn't expect is someone out of nowhere suddenly tries to get my inside. We try to get the switch back on him, however it is still a bit greasy. He's got the grip round the outside, and then away he goes. Now it is quite impressive since he was on cold tyres at this point to get around this corner, but at least we can try to keep up at this point. But as we can see, a little bit more rain hit my visor, which means this next corner might be interesting. However, we do manage to stay on the track. We try to get a grip round the corner and then keep onto his bumper, but we do not want to let him get away, as we know that Zach is one of the fastest here. Now before this meeting there was strict warnings not to use any curbs, and since I am a little bit in the spotlight, I do have a very bright suit and I am at the front at this point. Eyes were a little bit on me, so I had to make sure I was on my best behaviour not to use the curbs when I shouldn't. Now we do see Zach nearly wipe himself out on that last corner, however he managed to get the traction and keep the lead so far. Now we see Zach do exactly what I mentioned beforehand with body weight over the front wheel to try and get that traction. As we can see, he got a good getaway from that first corner. Now coming into dogleg, I do normally run the curbs, and as mentioned, I'm on my best behaviour, which you can see two multiple different lines from me and Zach going around that corner. So both of them were equally as fast as each other, so we need to make sure where we can actually make that move on him if we can. But at least he's not getting too far away. We can see he does have that little bit of edge going around the corners. I try to brake on the inside to make sure that that's the most traction and not to spin off and slip away. Quick check behind us as well, and the karts aren't anywhere near, so me and Zach can have a little bit of fun. But however, I do nearly go into the back of him going into the second centre, and that would have been end of race for both of us, and that would be very good. Now coming into the chicane, something a little bit weird. I normally am one of the fastest around this, especially in the wet. However, I just couldn't get the traction coming out the corner. I was just having too much wheel spin, which just caused the kart to go sideways mid corner, so I couldn't quite get the exit that I wanted. On the next lap, I'll be quiet and turn up the kart volume just so you can actually hear what I mean, where the revs are going up and just nothing's happening. At this point in the race, I would rather it be absolutely torrential rather than it being a little bit hitty missy, because there is grip randomly on some corners. However, you can see that I'm still needing to go around the outside to see where I can find that grip. Now, standard line around the actual horseshoe, able to go all around the outside, a little bit of tyres on the actual concrete on the exit so we can get that traction to straighten up. Now let's take a full lap of Warden Law in the wet, or indeed semi-wet. First corner, we need to make sure we run on the outside. This is where there's not much rubber actually on the track, so at least we can get some traction. Now Brian's bend, we want to be as close to this curve as possible. However, as I said, I would normally run over that curve, which drags you around, but I wasn't my best behaviour, which actually just pushed us wide, so I need to adjust my line there. We want to try to slow ourselves down, rotate the kart and cut that as straight as possible out of the dog leg. Here we need to run all the way around the outside. This is again where the grip is. We can see that I turn exceptionally late and wait for the kart to bite. On the first centre is I like to brake on the inside to make sure that I don't look up, because there's a lot of rubber down on the braking area, especially after a busy race weekend from Rotax rubber. And then coming into the second centre again, all the way around the outside, we've got some actual concrete on the outside, so try and get some traction if need be. And with the chicane, I like to make sure I can cut it deep and cut it straight, but here's what I meant about the actual traction coming out. Now straighten up, and as we head into gasworks, we want our braking point pretty much the same as if we're in the dry, but we are able to run all the way around the outside, put our wheels on that concrete, and that is definitely where the grip is. Now we want to try and get ourselves a little bit over to the right. Again, this is where there's a little bit more grip to make sure that we can rotate the kart going around to the horseshoe. And as we are getting a little bit further in, we want to point the kart so we can hit that concrete again, just to straighten ourselves up. We want to put this corner and make sure we make like a V or a triangle, just so at least we're not trying to hold too much lateral grip, because that is when you slide. And then we're on the start finish straight, and that is a semi-wet lap of Warden Law. Now we can see Zach has gone the distance. He was extremely consistent and just managed to outdrive me in this one, so really well done for him. Nothing extra does happen. We do finish in P2 in this race with Zach first. Now let's see what we can do in this final race. Now this next race is worth sticking around for. From the front row, everything should have gone to plan, but let's just say it didn't stay that way for very long. What followed was one of the most intense races I've had all season. Now the track was drying for the race beforehand, however it just started to rain just as we went out, so we can imagine the first lap is going to lead a little bit troublesome. Now again, we get a good start off the line. We managed to pip Zach into the first corner, but we've got to make sure if anyone can get me around the outside like the first time. However, we've managed to make this one stick, so we are in P1 right now, and away we go. Now we do have a quick glance behind us just to see where everybody else is, because we definitely don't want to be taken out on the first corner, or indeed second corner. But taken out, guess what happens on this dogleg? That was indeed Zach getting taken out from second place. However, it is wet, so at least I'm pretty sure that was just an accident. But let's see if we can capitalise on this. Heads up, I don't. So let's see what happens in a lap or two. So as we can see that the track is very slippy still having to do a bit of the wet line, and we can see some droplets on my visor, but we can see the grid. If we look to our left there, we're still quite bunched up. Now I don't particularly get a good start, or indeed I'm happy with how I'm doing so far, especially on a dog leg. I didn't do a good line, having to take all the curve, but that was generally a mistake. And we can see I'm not quite getting the turning that I want to. However, it is much better than beforehand. Felt a lot more traction coming out of that chicane. But the telltale sign to see how wet it is going into gasworks. Again, this is really the first lap, so we've got to be a little bit cautious. However, we do have much more grip than the last race so far. So again, head down, have a quick glance behind us, and we can see the karts are pretty close, but we know our pace is pretty good, especially from the first one. So we can see I'm not having to take as much of the wet line as I was in the first one. There is some plenty of grip, and we can see drying bits, and we can see blue sky on its way as well. So lap 1 done. Very happy with how we're doing so far. These new karts are so equal, at least we can have that confidence. Now, same as we did last time, we have a couple of karts coming out of the pits, so we can have a quick check who they were. So we are prepared that if these didn't get off the line, so we're checking if Zach was one of them. However, it isn't. We have a person in the green helmet, and then we also have Dan Barber, who I'm pretty sure was starting 3rd or 4th this one, so he's letting us pass, so thank you very much him. However, I'm guessing he's going to sneak in behind us, or indeed very close to the pack. Now, when you are first, you are the first person into the corner, so you are the telltale sign for everyone behind you to know where the grip is. So as we can see, I brake on the inside thinking it is very wet, and then out of nowhere, Penfold drives round us as if he's got wets on. So he's absolutely flying in this one. I feel like I still don't have the traction, especially as we can see coming out the second centre here. He just drives away from it, so I'm struggling somewhere and I'm not quite sure where. But never mind, head down to see if we can go forward. However, Dan just comes out of nowhere, finds some grip, manages to turn in, and again, I'm struggling like mad. So there's down to 3rd position, and we've got to make sure that we don't lose any more. But we are definitely struggling. But now we have someone to follow, so at least we can see how hard they're going at the corners and try and learn from either their mistakes or indeed make sure we can break that little bit later so we can catch up bit by bit. But as we can see, Andrew's gone in the distance. We've got Dan, who's again finding traction and just getting that edging away around each corner. But we can't let this ruin our race so far, so we need to make sure we get head down and try not to lose another position, as we are in the run-ins for a trophy right now. Now, even though we see droplets on my visor, it actually has stopped raining, but I'm maybe not aware of this because all I see is droplets on my visor as well. But we can see that they are getting grip in front, so we are just teasing the dry line a little bit. As we go into the dog leg, we can see Dan went a little bit wide, but then we'll catch that little bit up onto him there. So at least this is my favourite condition, where it's mixed wet, mixed dry, and just whoever's bravest wins. We can see as we go around St. John's, we do manage to hold traction, manage to keep up some speed, and we're actually catching on Dan now. So maybe a better trophies on the cards, especially when we go around the first centre there. We can see right on his bumper, but again, he's got Andrew to follow, who's maybe teasing that dry line, and I've got Dan to follow to at least know where I can go that little bit extra. But as we can see on my inside there, or trying to go around the outside in the middle of the chicane, we've got Ben just absolutely outdrives us, and away he goes. So we are down to 4th place. However, I'm feeling quite confident in my head right now to see where we can actually make it up. Gasworks hairpin was a good example to know exactly how we could push that little bit more from the person in front, as we each were just getting close to that apex. And now I know that we are drying. I just need to make sure that I can get onto the back of these to try and make them overtake stick. Now, it does get a little bit dicey, so make sure that you are watching to the end of this one, because it does get a little bit fun, and I might make the overtake of the year. Now, if you are enjoying this video so far, please do consider giving it a like, and also consider subscribing, as we do try and make content at least every week, if not every other week. But thank you very much for the support so far. Now, back to the action. We can see that they are catching Penfold in the lead. However, there may be some battles that might slow some people down, so we will see exactly what happens. And if you've ever seen my other videos with Penfold involved, they still have to overtake, and we all know that is extremely difficult, as his defense game is one of the strongest. Now, it does look like they are getting away from me. However, again, I'm feeling very confident in this one. I know there's plenty of gap for the karts behind me, so at least I can just take my time and then pounce when the time is right. I've also got to make sure that if they pounce on the karts in front, and if they make a mistake, that I don't want to go into the side or back of them, so I don't want that to ruin my race as well. Now, we can see the grip is starting to come to me, especially around that chicane as we get right on the bumper of Ben in front, as he can sense us, as he's looking behind it as well, which is probably a little bit of shock to him, considering how easy he managed to overtake. overtakers, but at least the grip is coming to us now, and at least I'm knowing where to go. Now Andrew is probably doing what I did when he overtook me, taking a little bit more wet line than he really should, going all the way around the outside of that horseshoe, which allowed Dan to get right onto his bumper, and then Dan's went wide on the last corner. Ben's managed to capitalise on that a little bit, but didn't have enough run down the straight. It ruined his exit going onto the straight, but we are now bunched up once again. Now we all think the race is ours right now, so it's anybody's race to P1. Who can actually come out the end, we'll find out. Now I'm now sensing there's going to be an opportunity for me to make up positions here. I've just got to get ready to pounce, because Dan is right on the bumper of Penfold, which means someone's going to go defensive. Whether or not that means I can go around the outside, but we can see that there's some defensive lines going on. Andrew's definitely looking behind him, see where he is. Now Ben tries to go around the outside of Dan. I try to squeeze him a little bit too much to the inside, and then we manage to get the switchback done, get the run onto them. We can see the went wide, and there we are, back up to P2. So that's 2 positions in 1 corner, exactly what we needed. Now that was one of my favourite overtakes of the year so far, and to be honest, the switchback is always one of my favourite overtakes. What about you? What's your favourite overtakes? Is it the dive bomb? Is it the switchback? Let me know in the comments. Now we've got Penfold on the cards. We know we are getting that grip now. We are that little bit faster. Penfold look behind him. His visor is all the way up to make sure that he can see, but let's hope a stone doesn't go in his eye. Now we can see that his line is starting to tighten up, a bit more of the dry line, but at least he's went that little bit wide on that last corner. He now knows I'm with him. I unfortunately didn't get enough run out that, so he does have the edge going into this first corner, so we try to slip behind him to make sure that we don't lose any position to the guys behind as well, as we know everybody here is fast, and if there's any gap, they are going to go for it. Now what's going through my head at this moment in time is I don't know how many laps is left, so I need to make sure that the first opportunity for overtake, I take it. Now I know that I am fast round the centre so far, and I know I'm fast going round the chicane, so it might be either a dive bomb going into gasworks, or it might be a switchback, but we're going to find out. Now I wasn't close enough going into the centre, however going round it we are right back on his bumper. Coming around the second centre again, we managed to hold our own. He doesn't get too far away, but we do get a little bit of a exit, so we're still right on his bumper. Now here we go around the chicane. Now we can see I'm a little bit tighter, able to cut that little bit straight. We are back on his bumper. He can see where we are. He's not going to make this easy for us, so he does actually open up the corner going to the gasworks. Now he does run that little bit wide, maybe outbrakes himself, or maybe found that little bit of slippy bit. We are still right on this. Where exactly can we get him? Going around the horseshoe again, there's no opportunity. He's tightened up his lines so they can't get him round there, and he's got that better exit, or that better route round the last corner. We are running out of laps, and we know he is one of the best defenders. Now he does think about going defensive, however these new cars are so equal, there's no way he'd be able to get the run. So maybe we've just got a bit scared from the old karts having so much difference on top end, but we're absolutely loving these new karts, especially how equal they are down the straight, out corners, etc. Now round dogleg we are doing okay, again right on his bumper, very closer than last time. Can we make a move going into the centre? Now he does have a little glimpse behind him, he does go that little bit defensive. Now we need to see if he overshoots himself, which he does, but can we put him offline a little bit? We do give him a little bit of tap on exit, a little bit of tap going round the second centre. Now we'll have a quick glance behind us to see where the others are, because we don't want them to capitalise on me fighting Andrew here. Now what I didn't expect is Andrew just to maybe mess up that chicane. I managed to go around the outside, or attempt to go around the outside mid-corner, which definitely wouldn't help if somebody was on my bumper there. Now Andrew is going extreme defensive. Now we try and get the run out of gasworks. Now I do give him that little bit of a tap, try to bump the car to go around him, but he is offline going around the horseshoe. Can I get that move done? Give him a little bit of tap going round. Now we are feeling racy, and we're feeling that this race is ours. Only a couple of laps left. We are on lap 8. Can we make that move stick? We are putting him under pressure, so he might make a mistake. We just have to see where he is. Now he did get that better exit going onto the straight, which means he was able to get away. However, he has that little bit of a slip back end going around the first corner, which again puts us right in contention for the win. Now we just got to keep him under pressure. Now he does go that little bit wide. We can see he's just letting that cart drift a little bit too far mid corner, so is that me thinking whereabouts I can get him? Again, we get a good run out of St. John's. He sees where we are. I was thinking, can I make a dive bomb going into the first NRS? However, he messes up, he overshoots himself, and then I'm able to get the switch back on him again, and we're now into P1. Now we know we have the speed. I have a quick check behind him, see if we are able to get that bit of a run. Now, being perfectly honest, what happens here is the battery runs out on the camera, so all that action, all that excitement, it was too excited, and then it's just decided to die pretty much in the next lap. Now, good news, we do manage to win this race, and I think that's the first win this year on this channel. So thank you very much for watching. That is all the action so far, and I hope I'll see you on the track next time.